Celebrity interviews are supposed to be controlled, polished, predictable, but every so often something goes wrong. A smile lingers too long, a laugh comes at the wrong moment, an answer doesn't match the question, and suddenly, what was meant to be entertainment turns into something deeply uncomfortable. These are not just awkward interviews. They're moments where masks slip, tension fills the room, and viewers are left wondering whether they're watching performance, deflection, or something far more disturbing. From explosive confrontations to eerie calmness that feels misplaced, these interviews crossed an invisible line. And once they did, there was no pulling back. Here are the top 10 scariest celebrity interviews, starting with number 10. Number 10. Joaquin Phoenix, Late Show with David Letterman. When Joaquin Phoenix appeared on late-night television in 2009, audiences expected charm, insight, maybe a glimpse into his latest film. What they got instead was something profoundly off balance. Phoenix arrived disheveled, heavily bearded, and emotionally distant. His answers were mumbled, evasive, and often hostile. He avoided eye contact. He laughed at moments that didn't call for laughter. And when pressed, he responded with irritation rather than humor. The tension between Phoenix and the host grew steadily. Jokes landed flat. Attempts to lighten the mood only deepened the unease. At times, it felt less like an interview and more like a confrontation where neither side knew how to proceed. What made the appearance unsettling wasn't volume or aggression, it was uncertainty. Viewers couldn't tell if Phoenix was in character, spiraling emotionally, or intentionally sabotaging the format. His vacant stares and abrupt dismissals created the sense that the interview had lost its shared reality. Later, the moment was reframed as part of a performance project, but context didn't erase the discomfort. Watching it live, audiences weren't witnessing art. They were watching a man who appeared disconnected, unpredictable, and uninterested in maintaining the social contract of television. That ambiguity is what made it frightening. Not chaos, but detachment. Number 9. Mel Gibson. Good Morning America arrest interview. In 2006, Mel Gibson sat down for a televised interview following his DUI arrest, and the result was one of the most visibly strained celebrity apologies ever broadcast. From the start, Gibson appeared rattled. His tone shifted unpredictably between remorse and defensiveness. Apologies felt rehearsed, while frustration seeped through his pauses and body language. He spoke carefully, yet his discomfort was unmistakable. What made the interview unsettling wasn't just the scandal, it was the sense that Gibson was fighting multiple battles at once. He attempted to control the narrative while visibly struggling to contain anger, shame, and resentment. His eyes darted. His phrasing felt guarded. Every sentence sounded like it had been weighed for damage. The interviewer pressed gently, but the tension never eased. Gibson's responses suggested a man cornered by consequences he didn't fully accept. The calm setting clashed with the volatility just beneath the surface. Viewers weren't witnessing accountability. They were witnessing containment. As the interview progressed, the disconnect became clearer. Gibson spoke of regret, yet his demeanor hinted at unresolved hostility. The performance of contrition couldn't fully mask the instability underneath. That imbalance between image management and emotional unrest gave the interview its disturbing edge. It wasn't explosive, it was brittle, and brittle things have a way of shattering without warning. Number 8. Tom Cruise, Today, Show with Matt Lauer. Tom Cruise's 2005 appearance on morning television remains one of the most infamous celebrity interviews ever aired. And not because of scandal, but intensity. What began as a promotional conversation quickly turned confrontational when Cruise launched into a forceful critique of psychiatry. His tone sharpened. His posture leaned forward. His certainty became aggressive. Unlike a heated debate, this exchange carried a different energy. Cruise wasn't arguing, he was asserting dominance. He interrupted repeatedly, dismissed opposing views outright, and spoke with an unwavering conviction that left little room for dialogue. The host attempted to moderate, but Cruise pushed harder. His expressions oscillated between smiles and visible frustration, creating an unsettling contrast. The calm studio setting only amplified how uncomfortable the exchange felt. What made the interview frightening wasn't what was said, It was how it was delivered. Cruz radiated intensity without self-awareness. There was no sense of playfulness or debate, only insistence. Viewers weren't watching disagreement. They were watching someone exert control over the conversation through force of personality. By the end, the interview felt less like television and more like a warning sign. The charm associated with Cruz dissolved, replaced by something rigid and confrontational. It wasn't explosive, but it was unyielding, and that made it deeply unsettling. Number 7. Jim Carrey. News, New York Fashion Week. Jim Carrey's 2017 red carpet interview didn't raise voices or provoke confrontation, but it left viewers disturbed in a quieter, more existential way. When asked routine questions, Carrey responded with philosophical monologues about meaninglessness, identity, and the illusion of self. His delivery was calm, his smile was faint, his eyes, however, felt distant. As the interviewer attempted to steer the conversation back to fashion or career, Carrey circled around her, speaking in abstract terms that disconnected entirely from the moment. The exchange felt ungrounded, as if two conversations were happening at once. What made the interview eerie was the mismatch between tone and content. Carrey wasn't joking. He wasn't performing. He appeared sincere, almost detached from shared reality. His comments weren't aggressive, yet they carried a heaviness that made the interviewer visibly uncomfortable. Laughter faded. Responses slowed. The moment lingered longer than it should have. This wasn't the manic comedian audiences expected. It was something colder, something introspective to the point of alienation. Watching it felt like witnessing someone step outside the frame of celebrity performance altogether. The usual cues were gone. There was no punchline, just emptiness, calmly explained. Number 6. Robert Blake, Piers Morgan, Tonight. When Robert Blake appeared on television in 2012, the interview began tense and rapidly escalated into something volatile. From the first question about his past, Blake bristled. His voice rose. His responses became combative. He accused the host of misrepresentation, bias, and provocation. Unlike theatrical outbursts, Blake's anger felt personal. His words were sharp, laced with resentment. He leaned forward, invading space verbally if not physically. The studio atmosphere thickened with hostility. What made the interview frightening was unpredictability. Blake oscillated between defensiveness and outright aggression. His accusations spiraled, and at times his speech bordered on incoherent rage. The host attempted to maintain control, but Blake rejected the premise of the interview entirely. He wasn't there to explain, he was there to fight. Viewers weren't watching a discussion. They were watching confrontation without restraint. By the end, the segment felt less like journalism and more like a standoff. The tension didn't resolve. It simply stopped. And that unresolved hostility lingered long after the cameras cut. Number 5. Charlie Sheen, ABC Interview, 2011. By the time Charlie Sheen sat down for his now infamous interview in 2011, the public already knew something was wrong. What they didn't expect was to witness a complete psychological freefall unfold in real time. Sheen spoke rapidly, confidently, and without hesitation. He declared himself a winner. He described having tiger blood and a different DNA than ordinary people. Every sentence sounded grandiose, detached from reality, and delivered with absolute conviction. What made the interview frightening wasn't the content alone. It was the absence of doubt. Sheen did not appear confused. He appeared certain. His eyes were sharp. His posture was rigid. He paced between arrogance and hostility without warning. Attempts by the interviewer to slow the conversation failed. Sheen dominated the space, redirecting questions into self-mythology. He dismissed concern. He mocked restraint. He reframed chaos as superiority. Beneath the bravado, something darker surfaced. His speech suggested paranoia. His confidence felt manic rather than empowered, and his refusal to acknowledge consequences made the moment feel dangerous. Viewers weren't watching scandal. They were watching detachment from reality, performed proudly and without shame. What lingered after the interview wasn't shock, it was dread, because this wasn't a meltdown behind closed doors. It was a collapse broadcast live, with no one able or willing to stop it. Number 4. Kanye West, InfoWars with Alex Jones, 2022. When Kanye West appeared on InfoWars in 2022, the interview crossed far beyond controversy and into something genuinely chilling. West arrived masked, his face obscured, his voice calm. What followed was hours of extremist rhetoric delivered without emotion, including open praise for Adolf Hitler. There was no hesitation, no irony, no visible discomfort. Sitting alongside known extremists only amplified the menace. This wasn't confrontation television, it was affirmation. What made the interview terrifying was West's composure. He didn't shout, he didn't rant. He spoke slowly, deliberately, as if explaining simple truths. That emotional flatness stripped away any sense of performance. The host attempted to redirect at moments, but West doubled down repeatedly. Each statement grew more disturbing, not because of escalation, but because of repetition. Hatred became normalized through calm delivery. There was no sign of self-awareness, no acknowledgement of consequences. The usual cues that signal controversy were absent. Viewers weren't witnessing provocation. They were witnessing ideological unraveling, broadcast without filter. Even longtime observers struggled to contextualize what they were seeing. This wasn't rebellion, it wasn't shock art. It was something colder, something resolute. And that unwavering certainty, paired with total detachment, made this one of the most unsettling interviews ever aired. Number 3. R. Kelly, CBS interview with Gayle King, 2019. R. Kelly's interview with Gayle King remains one of the most disturbing televised breakdowns in recent memory, not because of surprise, but because of intensity. As King calmly questioned him about abuse allegations, Kelly initially attempted composure, but cracks formed quickly. His voice rose. His breathing changed. His posture stiffened. Then the explosion came. Kelly screamed. He pounded his chest. He sobbed and shouted in rapid succession. His emotions swung violently between rage and desperation, creating a scene that felt unstable and uncontrollable. What made the interview frightening was contrast. King remained composed, grounded, and methodical. Kelly spiraled. That imbalance turned the interview into something resembling a psychological emergency. His words contradicted themselves. His gestures felt performative, yet unrestrained. The emotion felt real, but unfocused. Viewers weren't watching defense. They were watching emotional collapse under pressure. At no point did the interview feel safe. There was a sense that anything could happen next, that the emotional energy in the room was no longer contained. The moment became iconic, not because of what was revealed, but because of how it was revealed. The desperation, the anger, the refusal to accept accountability. It wasn't just uncomfortable, it was alarming. Number 2. Mike Tyson, post-fight interviews, 2000. Mike Tyson's reputation for menace was already legendary by the year 2000, but it was his interviews, calm, controlled, and terrifying, that cemented his image as genuinely unpredictable. After a fight, Tyson stood before cameras and declared he wanted to eat another boxer's children. He didn't shout, he didn't laugh. He stated it plainly. The threat landed with chilling force because of how seriously it was delivered. There was no metaphorical wink, no performance flourish, just intensity. Later interviews only reinforced that image. When challenged, Tyson's demeanor shifted instantly. Profanity followed. Insults flew. The atmosphere turned hostile without warning. What made these moments frightening wasn't aggression. It was volatility. The sense that violence wasn't far away. That restraint was temporary. Interviewers visibly recoiled. Conversations ended abruptly. Control evaporated. Tyson didn't need to raise his voice to dominate the room. His presence alone carried threat. Watching these interviews now feels less like sports commentary and more like observing a force barely contained by cameras and contracts. It wasn't bravado. It was danger. Spoken calmly. Number 1. O.J. Simpson, If I Did It interview, 2006. No celebrity interview has ever felt more chilling than O.J. Simpson's hypothetical recounting of a double murder. Framed as fiction, The interview asked Simpson to describe how the killings might have occurred. What followed felt disturbingly specific. Simpson slipped into first-person language. He described movements, emotions, sequences. At times, he appeared to relive the night rather than imagine it. His tone was casual, detached, almost reflective. What made the interview terrifying wasn't anger or instability, it was calmness. Violence was discussed without visible remorse. Details surfaced without hesitation. At moments, laughter punctuated the narrative. The casual delivery clashed grotesquely with the subject matter. Viewers weren't watching speculation. They were watching something that felt uncomfortably close to confession. Even the interviewer struggled to maintain distance. Clarifications were requested, boundaries reinforced, but the damage was done. Years later, the interview remains disturbing, not because of shock, but because of familiarity. Simpson spoke as someone who knew the terrain too well. Nothing in celebrity television history has ever felt so cold, and nothing has ever lingered longer. Celebrity interviews are designed to reveal charm, talent, and control. But in these moments, control slipped, and something far more unsettling took its place. Whether through rage, detachment, or eerie calm, each interview exposed cracks that couldn't be edited away. And once those cracks appeared, viewers were left watching not performances, but people unravel in real time. These moments linger because they feel unguarded, unrehearsed, and disturbingly honest. If you've seen an interview that left you uneasy long after it ended, share it in the comments. And if you want more hidden moments from Hollywood's past that time hasn't softened, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay with us. Some interviews end when the cameras cut, others never really do.